Hello, listeners. Welcome to an episode of Voices of Impact by TALRadio English, powered by Touch a Life Foundation. The aim of education is not to create professionals, but to create people who understand the power of knowledge and its application to make the world a better place. This quote is by Swami Vivekananda, and this perfectly sets the tone for today's episode. For today's episode, we have with us Ranjani Saigal. She serves as the Executive Director of Ekal Vidyalaya Foundation USA. She has worked in education technology in Tufts University and MIT and has a strong desire to serve the Indian community. With over 100,000 schools in rural India and Nepal under her supervision, she leads initiatives such as Ekal on Wheels, which brings computer literacy to the remotest of places. She is the co-creator of Lokwani.com, a bi-weekly South Asian e-magazine, and the founder of one of Boston's oldest and the most prominent Indian classical dance school. She has received numerous awards, and one of the most prominent one is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Asian American Commission's Lifetime Achievement Award. We extend a warm welcome to Ranjani ji.
Thank you so much, Pavithra. You're very generous in your comments. I loved your introductions and the phrasing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ranjani ji. And I can't describe what I have had. There's this pleasure of getting to know about your work. It has been great. And you have had somewhat of a Midas touch. You know, no matter what you have taken up in life, you have turned it to gold. So, be it your education, you graduated from IIT Bombay, and then you went on to work in education technology with prominent universities, and you are a phenomenal dancer. And so, I am really intrigued to know, how did you come to Ekal, and what was that one incident or event that prompted you to work for this particular cause?
Very good question. I was going to say, I don't think it's one event, but I think my whole life journey, I think, culminated into this. And I'll tell you why. I am the daughter of this person who was born in a village that looks like the background that I have, very poor, had nothing. And he went to a single teacher school. And later he became the dean at IIT Bombay. He was the founder of IIT Bombay. So the idea that education can provide a dramatic difference to somebody was, ingrained in me since I was born, but for that opportunity, his daughter, would not be standing here, because it is not only an impact on one person, it's a generational impact that happens when you give education. So it was always in my mind that I would like to work in, of course, education, but in some ways that I can find more of people like my father and maybe give them some opportunity so that the world can identify their potential. So, of course, I started out like everybody else. I went to, get a degree. And of course, dance is my passion, I have to say. If I always think that if I lived in America, maybe I would have just been a dancer full time. But, being in India, I had to do, engineering. That was the thing to do. And I'm glad I did. I mean, I think the learning was very, very important. And then coming here, but the thing, what happened when I came to the United States while I was working, and, I pursued my dance as a hobby. And I used to run fundraisers for many causes. People would come, they always need a, dance show to do that. And one of that was this organization, Ekal. And when I heard about, first of all, the return of investment, it was just $1 to run a school in the rural areas. And when I heard that, I got a little intrigued by it. But I have to say that the one moment that really triggered my thing to change and leave my job and move into this permanently was when I visited one of the Ekal villages. And when I went, it was a rural area. I saw these girls and boys, in not very beautifully attired, but with such a spark in their eyes. And, people said, oh, this girl, lady has come from America and all of these things. And when we finished the whole conversations, I said, do you have any comments for me? And this girl, very simple girl, actually lifted her hand and asked me a question and said, Didi, आप, इतना अच्छा कुछ कर किए हो, आप हमारे लिए क्या कर सकते हो? And it touched me deeply. I said, what is the point in what I have accomplished or whatever, whatever little I did with my life, if I couldn't really help another girl, another this wonderful woman who had, when I was a child, I don't think I could have raised my hand and asked such a question. So she did that, and I said, if I have that opportunity, I'll put more of my heart and soul. It's not just about giving a dollar or something. I used to donate a little money, but then the great opportunity came up when my two kids got off my payroll. My second child graduated from college. I said, this is the moment, so I went ahead and I did that.
Wow. It's so beautiful, and I can't but appreciate the courage the girl showed on that day to
Yes.
ask for what she needed. Commendable.
The thing about rural areas, that is the thing about rural areas, I think, that the women there are really charged. They just need an opportunity.
So another thing which piqued my interest is that we have already established that you have somewhat of a Midas touch, and you take, convert everything that you take into life into gold. And you are someone who has, I think, ingrained the idea of holistic development, because you have been equally passionate about arts, and you have been equally passionate about education. So I know that Ekal Vidyalaya's one of the commandments or one of the pillars is the fact that you want to not just educate children but give them holistic education. And what does it mean for you, and what does it mean for the foundation? What is holistic education?
Very good question. So I'll start first from the idea of holistic education itself. Before I go to holistic development, we do want to focus on holistic development, and we started with education, but we are moving into the complete development model. So when our founder actually started this program, he said we should have something called a Panchamukhi Shiksha, or a fivefold education. So, in addition to reading, writing, arithmetic, which is just one part of it, we want to give them ideas about health and hygiene. That is very important, at that level. Then we want to give them civic awareness. What is your government? Who are you? So that kind of development is important. Fourth, financial literacy. You need to understand how to manage, your economics and all that. And fifth, and most important, I will say, is cultural awareness. And that is where art, music, dance, music, all of this really comes to bear. And why is this important, right? For me personally, I would say, right, because because of my dance, I am very rooted in my culture, and that is what gives me that ability to, succeed in other things. I think any tree, if the tree is not rooted, it cannot bear leaves, I think, and I think this is very important for the children in the village as well, that they should understand and be proud of who they are and where they come from. It doesn't matter which village you come from, you have a very rich history, very rich culture. Bharat is like that. The cultural, the soil of Bharat is sacred, right? And for the villagers to understand that. And I think when you also have dance and music, your mind opens in different dimensions. I mean, this has been established very scientifically. So our founder was very clear that we are going to be teaching reading, writing, arithmetic, not just in a boring way, but actually using music, dance, and very innovative ways so that people want to come to school. So in fact, when I went to visit the school, this was the other thing that I really was very impressed, that the children were very happy to be there, because it was not rote learning. They were innovatively being taught how to do things. So I think that is in my mind, that is the idea of holistic education. Let us develop the whole person. So now if you want to move into holistic development, then of course, definitely education is one important aspect of what you do. You need to, teach them how to fish, rather than giving them a fish. But then pretty soon we realize that we do need to provide other services in the village, and because we have the reach to go into the village, we were able to bring such services as well. So the second pillar after education that got developed in the villages was health. So, initially it was preventative health, that is, for preventing communicable diseases ideas. And now actually technology has become a big addition, and we are providing telemedicine services in the villages. And the third big pillar was, how do we give them skills? so that they can, get economic opportunities. So not only to give economic opportunities to the individuals, but also to bring these skills into the village. One of the things, for example, I learned is that the women or rural people wear torn clothes because if they don't have easy access to a tailor. So if you could actually teach women how to sew, they not only can they get an income, but also you get better clothes, better, the people in the villages themselves are better clothed. So we started skill training. And of course, the biggest boon that we have had is technology. So we are able to bring digital literacy into the village, because today, without digital literacy, I think holistic development is development itself is not possible. And India is shining because of the inroads that technology and communications has made into the deepest of villages. So that's what I think of as holistic education and holistic development.
That was a beautiful answer. And I just have one more question for you, with continuing with what you have said about the initiatives of Ekal. And yeah, it is regarding you have numerous initiatives. So E-Shiksha, Ekal on Wheels, and you had mentioned about the telemedicine services. And I'm sure that you have had a lot of success stories, and I want you to share a couple of them. And I would also like to know, how do you assess the efficacy of these initiatives? And I remember you had mentioned during one of your speeches that one girl had come up to you, who had benefited from the E-Shiksha, came up to you and said to you that, you gave us an opportunity to touch the future. And I got a lot of happiness out of it. And I can only imagine how overwhelming it would be for someone who is closely working with the cause.
Yes, absolutely. I think that moment I will never forget, and I'm glad you picked up on that as well. So, success stories, yes, I would say. I have so many such success stories that come to my attention. Like just the other day, we were doing a virtual tour of one of the Ekal on Wheels, which travels to the different villages and brings digital literacy to the village. And one of the persons said that the way he got introduced to Ekal on Wheels was it had stopped by a tea stall, and he was actually a very, he was helper at the tea stall, a young fella who was just doing chai, and he brought chai to the driver. And then he said, what is this bus? And the driver said, oh, this is about digital literacy and all of this. And he got fascinated by it, and he said, can I come and become part of it? And they said, we can absolutely do that. And he came on, and this chaiwala who went into there and started, to learn. And then later on, I found out his father had passed away, and he really didn't have an opportunity. And that's why he was working at this tea shop. Once he got digitally literate, now he is running a computer service center,
Wow.
close by, and he said he is supporting his mother and his sister. It really gave me goosebumps to think of that, that what opportunities, digital literacy can bring to him, So I know Prime Minister Modi went from Chaiwala to Prime Minister, but this is our little success story that it deeply touched me. Another young lady in actually in Telangana, one of the things I realized is that there are many girls, they do go to college, they, study somewhat, I mean, not the very wealthy ones, and often they get married into rural areas, and they are not able to continue their profession. They are challenged in many ways. They are not allowed to, really cannot travel and things like that. And there was a young lady who had, in fact, a BSc, and she just couldn't pursue anything. So we have now worked with IIT Madras to have, a remote training for computer QA and software and things like that. And amazingly, when we put the first test out, the women were the ones who were the most successful. And in fact, so one of our graduates not only went through the program, but now she is doing remote QA from her home in in a village, while she's feeling very fulfilled, having an income, and at the same time using her skills. So these two stories, I think, always touch me, and of course there are so many more such things like that. So KPI is a very good thing. How do I figure out, am I successful or not? And that's a very good question. Of course, one important pointer that I always take is that, can I scale this? Is it replicable? And I think the for very fundamentally, the first school we started in, with Ekal, right? I think it started when the founders made it with 60 schools. There, that we were able to replicate it, and it's continuing for 38 years. That means, first of all, we are fulfilling a need. It's not a small need, it's a very important need, and the methodology that we have is actually successful and working. So the fact that it has sustained for so long, I think, certainly is a very important identifier. And the point, another very important point, is how the villagers welcome us. What they think of Ekal. Every time I go into the village, I will say this other one very important story that I don't know if you have heard me say it, but when I went into Assam, it was the time that the terrorism and all that had just settled down, and some of them. So one of the persons who was a teacher there, I asked, who was the previous teacher, and they said that that was somebody who was killed in this terrorism activity, and they said that ever only prior to Ekal going in there, they said there was nobody who reached out to them, with as a pyar se haath nahi badhaya. Nobody came because these are remote rural areas and it's hard to go there. And he said when Ekal came, they first actually were a little wary, who are these people, and hopefully there are not negativities there. And then she said, I understood that we need shiksha and not guns. Banduk nahi, shiksha chahiye. And I think when we hear those kinds of words, we really feel very, very honored and successful. Of course, at the end of the day, are people getting jobs? How are people doing? Those are all things. But I think that is almost in these rural areas, it's not as much about that, because I don't know whether every one of my little, young person would become a engineer in an urban area. In fact, you don't want to do that. You cannot put 70% of rural India into 30% of urban India. But if they are having a better, happier, more productive life, and we are solving some problems for them, that's very important. And finally, really, if they look to us and say, hey, Ekal, you're doing a good job, we must be doing something right.
Definitely, most definitely, Ekal is doing a great job, and I think it's important that the villages develop also along with the urban development that is happening in the country. And what you're doing is, I think it causes a domino effect, right? You teach one student, you educate the whole village develops, and that's how the country progresses. And it's such great, such a great idea to have a one-person school and allow them to educate so many students in and around them. And one of the things that you told just for the previous question was how a person who was working in a chai stall came across Ekal's initiatives and enrolled in it and became successful. So I have often wondered while going through what Ekal has done, that is, of course, 10 years ago, you might have faced a certain degree of skepticism regarding education in the remotest of village. Now, you had mentioned a case in Assam where they were welcoming to Ekal, but I'm sure that you would have faced challenges as well. So when you went there, maybe they were skeptical about it. Why education might have been one of the question. You are anyway going to be here in the village, and why do you need education? I would rather have my son or daughter work with me in the farm, could be a possible answer to that. And I know that for a fact that for the past 10 years, the government of India has worked extensively to ensure digital accessibility to every corner of this country. And how has that changed the game for Ekal? And what are the new challenges that Ekal has been facing?
Yes, very interesting questions. You're so right. When we started Ekal, our founders in India, they tell us about that when they went into a village, they were going and meeting first generation learners. So the parents had no idea about what a school is. They had never been to a school. And in fact, I think there was this village in Rampur in Bihar where no girl had ever received an education. And I'm sure there are others as well. And it took a lot of hard work on part of the ground team to go into these villages. And the way we really were able to convince people to come into education is by taking local youth. Our whole model is that we hire local youth from the villages itself and train them to be our ambassadors. So when they go in, when the villager's friend is telling them this is something you should try, they trust them, and then they start coming. And once, of course, and actually that was one of the reasons that they put the school in the village and in an open area under a tree, because people did not know what a school is. So for them, anybody can come and see what is going on, so that they are not nervous. And once they see the school, the joy, I mean, the children just are happy, right? If you don't go to a school and all day you're just working, you're not happy. And these children really felt a sense of joy and happiness to be able to read, to be able to see board signs, to know which bus is coming. These all really prompted education. And I have to say, I totally agree with you. Government of India has been extensively working to bring more such services to the villages. And there are schools coming up, and whenever there is a real government school close by, we encourage our children to go there, but they come to us for a support school. Now, speaking of digital infrastructure, again, I cannot tell you how amazing it has been. So I joined the organization officially in 2013 as executive director. And I had come from MIT, and of course I had this vision that I'll just go put technology in, and wow, India will change. It was not easy at all. At that time, internet access was really difficult. Power was not so easy in those areas. Things have dramatically changed now. Now, when I go into the villages, just recently, when in December I went, there are, when I ask kids, do you have a smartphone? About five of them will raise their hand that they know what a smartphone is. They've seen a smartphone. So what is the opportunity this brings us? This is where our telemedicine program, our e-Shiksha program can really scale up quite a bit, because now, in the past, I used to keep saying that not having a road is an impediment, right? It really is. If you don't have a road, the connectivity, and that's how is lacking, and hence people have a hard time. But now this internet road has come in, and it has really transformed people. The So obstacles wise, I think actually I would say it's really opportunity. People are very excited. They know about phones. They're consuming things. And actually, another important thing is when COVID happened, right? I think everybody was forced to go remote, and I think even in the villages before that, if I ask my villagers to come on a Zoom or a Skype, it was really hard. But now they know how to install it, how to run it, so I think every negative thing has this positive spin that has come to us. And now, because of this, the opportunity, as I said, we can bring opportunities like QA, those kinds of things, things that were being outsourced from America to India can go from urban to rural. And India is developing. The needs for skilled people is going up tremendously. So we really think we can see that a lot. But in the beginning, when I told people that, I remember when I said, we need to bring tablets, we need to bring. So the point was, nay, let us do farming first, So, but now that, and the villagers themselves are seeing, I saw, what is it in Man Ki Baat, drone Didi, trying to put all this, water in the villages. And so I think with government's push on technology, people seeing all of this on their devices, they're becoming very aspirational. And I think that has been a really positive impact. And so the obstacle is they really want everything perfect in the day one. And that is probably a challenge sometimes. If it doesn't work, they expect everything is magic. So I think that's the only thing. But other than that, it has been a very positive experience. And if we can scale fast enough, I think we'll be in a good shape.
I just love how the initiative by the government and Ekal has really amped up the aspirations of the people in villages, and we can just look forward to how India is going to glow and grow in the years to come. There is so much to see. And there is one thing that I really wanted to ask you about is, so India is such a vast country, and there are so many regions, and there are so many cultural, and they're so specific, culturally and linguistically. Even villages, which is located like 5 kilometers apart, may have completely different traditions to another villages, just 5 kilometers away, a neighborhood village. So I came to know that Ekal specializes or distinguishes itself by specializing its curriculum, which is, it's very specific to a particular region, to a particular locality. And I am thinking here that there are like over 100,000 schools in India. How do you specialize curriculum for 100,000 school, and the enormity of it? And it's sounds quite cumbersome. And I really wanted to understand, how do you do that? What is the process of localizing a curriculum, and how do you ensure the quality, like in every region?
Yeah, very, very good questions. So, what really is unique about Ekal is our infrastructure, the people infrastructure that we have put in place. So, we never go into one village, we go into a cluster of 30 villages, and that is called a Sanch. And then, few Sanchas come together to become an Anchal, the Anchal comes together to become a Bhag, and so on and so forth. So, at every level, we take people, respected people from that area to lead and train people, further downstream from them. So for example, when we go into a village, we have a gram samiti there, and we have somebody there who will tell us all about the village, all about the customs and the traditions and all of that. And the teacher that we take is from the village. So once these people come to us, then what happens at the Anchal level, their teachers undergo a 6-day training. So in that process, what they do, there is a core curriculum, right? So two things happen. One is, of course, you need to translate the language. That is obviously done by the people of the state. That is pretty simple. But when it is taken by the teacher, she or he, mostly a she writes up a little lesson plan that is more individualized to that village. Right. So, for example, if we are talking about, our the trainings clearly says, when you're saying one or two, find a thing that is one around you. So it might be, yes, of course, there might be things like the sun, which is only one, but there might be a fruit that is of that kind, right? Like somewhere, one place you might call it, I don't know, moringa, one place muringikai, I don't know, whatever it is. So it might be called different things. The animals might be different. So we really work with the teacher to say, hey, customize this to your culture. The other thing is, because we are using that local teacher, the language they use would be the dialect of that village, because they know that dialect, right? Like they do know like if it is Telangana, for example, they will know Telugu, but they can obviously know how to customize it to their village. So the idea is to use the people themselves to customize the curriculum. Again, we are talking about K through 3, so it's a basic for young children. 6 to 14 is what we are talking. So the curriculum isn't complex. It's not like we are teaching calculus. It's more basic arithmetic, basic knowledge of things that the teacher themselves can go ahead and customize. And actually, this is where I really feel like I'm very excited with the future of AI here, right? Like, if in the future I do e-shiksha, one of the challenges of doing something like e-shiksha was, in the past, you have to do it in multiple languages for us, which was really complicated. But now with AI, can I just change the language very easily and use master teacher, use a master teacher who might, maybe a Telugu master teacher, I can use their work to teach in Assam, can I do those kinds of things, right? Like, and wherever you are, let's bring the best of the talent to try to train. So looking at that as an opportunity, but this is how we have been doing our current customization of the training. And every month, actually, at the cluster level, there's a trainer that goes and talks to the teachers and make sure that they are doing a reasonable job. And every 6 months, these teachers come to that, that Anchal or that district level to take a 6-day training, which is where all this feedback on customizing the curriculum.
I can only imagine the possibility that AI is giving us, technology is giving us. And in fact, even 10 years ago, you had mentioned that if you are not technically literate, you are not literate. And it stands true now more than ever. And there is something that going forward, I would like to talk about having positive changes. So organizations such as Ekal, collaborating, what do you think about cross collaboration and getting a platform to talk about your cause? Because you had given a speech in the TAL platform, Touch a Life platform, last year in October for the first edition of it. And a lot of people came to know about your organization through it. How do you feel about it? And do you think that more organizations should make use of collaboration and make use of platforms to bring their work out in public? Because someone needs to talk about it so that more people can get involved, they can get more funds, and it's just a ripple of positivity.
Oh, absolutely. I cannot agree with you more. I think, especially when you're trying to do what we are, which is holistic development, large scale, without collaborations, it's really hard to do, So, like, at a very, like I said just now, we are collaborating with IIT Madras. I cannot create that content or curriculum. And they cannot know how to come into my village. So it is actually the team that is doing is a non-profit wing of IIT Madras that is doing that. So it is a non-profit collaboration across, and there are so many such examples. Our telemedicine program that we are doing, actually the platform that we use is another organization which is a non-profit, and they are collaborating with us. So I cannot emphasize enough the need to collaborate between non-profits. It's a very, very important thing, and I cannot thank you all enough for giving us such a platform that Touch a Life Foundation has come together to put together. Just by providing, what, for example, I would say, right, one of the things that, we as nonprofits don't have the bandwidth to do is to, do some marketing, do some, awareness creation. We don't have the right kind of, we have not invested in that. And to take somebody who is an expert on that, who is invested in that, and to say, hey, we will provide you some help with marketing, with sharing your message. I mean, that is a really, really fantastic thing we have got. And also the point that you made, which is to have one platform where many nonprofits are featured so that people can identify collaborations. People can come together and see, maybe, the thing about us, for example, is we have a breadth. We have a breadth of access into, hundreds of thousands of villages. But there might be people who have developed specific solutions that have a lot of depth. So if this depth needs to get to breadth, maybe they should come and talk to us. So there is a big, definitely a big opportunity for collaborations. And I can only imagine, I mean, I know that Touch a Life, just got started, and already I'm feeling so positive, when you featured us in your, in the talk. I got so many comments. People reached out back to me and said, hey, this is interesting what you're doing, and so on and so forth. So I think it's a great way to, spread our message. And hopefully in the future, we look forward. Funding is, very key to what we do, and to be able to get these messages, dollar a day to run a school, try to, and then we are doing health and we are doing skill training to get these messages out, so that if there are philanthropists who are interested in these kind of specific areas, that touches their heart, what a way to connect and bring. And I think at Touch a Life, I also noticed that the organization is trying to bring leaders, who are philanthropic leaders as well, into the, into the whole community. So I can only imagine the opportunities that this is going to present, and I cannot thank you all enough, thank your founders enough for what you have done.
We can't thank you enough for agreeing for this interview, and how insightful it was, because you have so many things to say, so many things to offer, and just a 30-minute interview doesn't cut it. And there were so many other questions that I wanted to ask as well. So I do hope that we get another opportunity to talk about it some other day. And yes, like you had mentioned, cross collaboration is extremely important, and I can't wait to see how we can manage to collaborate different organizations, what they have to offer. And collaboration is a sure short way to create a very powerful impact. So with that note, we will come to the end of this conversation. And once again, thank you so much, Ranjani ji. I couldn't have asked for a better second episode for our Voices of Impact. So thank you so much for coming and offering insights on Ekal and your journey. I had such a wonderful time talking to you. And with that,
Thank you, Pavithra. You are an amazing interviewer. So thank you so much. And all the people at TALRadio, my really, really, really heartfelt and humble gratitude. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Ranjani ji. So, to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Voices of Impact. We'll be coming back with more episodes. So, stay tuned in to Tal Radio. And this is your host, Pavithra Krishnakumar, signing off.